Well, thank you and welcome all for attending our session today on using tools to achieve progress in responsible sourcing. Can you hear me? Can I just check? At the back you hear me? I know that we had some... Perfect. Northern voice does carry quite a lot. So my name's Alison Hudson. I'm Director of Client Services at Sedex, and I'm joined today on the panel by Janet Menzick, who's the Programme Director for the Social and Labour Convergence Programme. Nick Hill Hyderami, the Director of the Hyderami Group. Samuel Cliff, who's our Senior Manager for Ethical Trade within the Worldwide Fruits Group, and Rodney Chambers, our Member Trainer within Sedex. Before we get started, I know that we had some challenges this morning with the live polling and the posting of questions. Can I just check you've all downloaded the app? It does have the functionality within that app, as you saw this morning, to be able to post questions that we can feed into the panel throughout the session. We have tested, it is working, so hopefully it will be okay. Failing that, we do have some of our colleagues with us today who are our roaming mics, so we can go direct to audience questions as well. Okay, so in our session today, we're looking to explore, as it states, what tools are used to achieve progress within responsible sourcing. I'd like to be able to introduce the SLCP, so the Social and Labour Convergence Programme, which is a verified assessment framework, which is looking to address some of the challenges around audit fatigue and how assessment and improvement tools can support greater impact. We'll also then discuss how other Sedex tools and services are being used in practice, and look at the challenges and the solutions which are being implemented to support kind of positive change. I would like to start the session today talking around the Social and Labour Convergence Project. And Sedex is extremely pleased to have become an accredited host for SLCP. Our collaboration is born from an alignment of core values aimed at reducing duplication, driving improvements, and having a positive impact. In addition, it is an ability to be able to complete one assessment and share with multiple customers. And also a key factor for many of our members has been able to capture complementary data points within the Sedex platform. And we believe that our partnership with SLCP will bring these benefits to our membership now and in the future. I'd like to pass over to Janice and Nick Hill, who will talk more around the framework of SLCP and take you further. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. So can everyone hear me? This works? Oh, super. First of all, thank you so much for providing Nikhil and myself the opportunity. I'm the director for the SLCP, and Nikhil is basically my boss. He's in the SLCP Council. We are really excited to explain you a bit on what we have achieved in the SLCP in the past few years and where we're going while we're now in the implementation phase in the next coming years. But also really excited to hear in this audience explain a bit on the opportunities that the partnership between SLCP and Sedex that's going to really take its avenue this year. So what kind of opportunities that provides. You've heard a lot in the morning session already about collaboration and about impacts, about outcomes. I think all of that really also is at the heart of what the SLCP is. I'll first start by explaining that a bit with what we call is our theory of change. So the SLCP aims to converge basically audits, social labor assessments. It started with the notion, particularly in the apparel and footwear sector, that there has been 25 years of audits, and if you, I still remember from my first days at the SLCP, which is only 3 years ago, but that we kept like this phrase from Albert Einstein about insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. this is basically what we're trying to solve here, and it's also knowing that it was not the first time. There has been the talks about audit duplications, and really are the audits driving the change that we want it to be. That discussion has been going on already for a long time. There has been numerous attempts. So when we started, there was, I think, a healthy also cynicism on, are we going to really achieve what we want to achieve? I hope that the presentation that Nikhil and myself are going to lay out for you are convincing you that we have come a long, long way, and that the opportunities are now greater than ever before. Anyways, our theory of change. We want to converge on industry-wide assessment framework, being it a data collection tool and a verification methodology, that on the one hand, if the whole industry would use that, would reduce all the duplications and would that way free up resources that could be reinvested in improvement programs, which we collectively as the signatories of the SLCP think are a better way to spend those resources. On the other hand, if the industry would use the same set of data, verified data, you can create comparability, and we can work towards that transparency that was also talked about in the first session this morning, and also that leads to our higher vision of improved working conditions. We, in SLCP, as I mentioned, we had a project phase. We ended that last year, 3 years of developing the tools and the verification methodology. Right now, we are in the implementation phase. We have approved, together with our signatories, a 5-year strategic plan that will lead us through. And basically, we have a vision of converged assessment, collaborative action, improved working conditions. Our mission is to implement that converged assessment framework throughout the industry, but basically, and that's an important thing to keep in mind, we want our stakeholders to use the converged assessment framework and to use it for things like remediation, transparency, setting codes, etc. Our targets are really specific in 4 points. So we want to, by 2023, we want to reach 25,000 verified assessments. We want to unlock more than $130 million for to be redirected towards improvement programs. We want to be the #1 source of verified social and labor data. And as an organization, we want to be self-sustaining based on earned income. So this is not about a new membership organization. Very important is what it is not and what the SLCP will be. So as SLCP, it's not a new standard. We won't set minimum requirements. It's not about scoring. It's not about certification or a code of conduct. We want to be compatible with all that exists. So we want to be feeding into codes of conduct standards, remediation programs, scoring systems. Stakeholders can use the verified data from the SLCP. And also in terms of IT, we want to be compatible with existing platforms. So hence the partnership that Alison already mentioned about Sedex becoming an accredited host in the wider network of SLCP. And I wanted to highlight also this graph, which is coming directly from a 5-year strategic plan. So the SLCP really focuses on the converged assessment framework, and we want to drive collaborative actions. We have identified a couple of key areas that we think are essential to create the impact on improved working conditions, but that are not necessarily within the scope of SLCP itself. We would like to partner with other organizations who build further on the converged assessment framework on the SLCP verified data to drive better buying practices, transparency, remediations, and scoring. A bit And I won't go into detail here, but to provide you a bit of an understanding what the converged assessment framework is. So 3 basic elements. It's a data collection tool. We've started off with that in an extensive Excel tool with a lot of data points. There's a verification protocol, and there is a verifier guidance. You can all find it. It's open source in that respect, so you can find it on our gateway. There's a link here on this slide. So we have developed together with our right now over 190 signatories. We've developed that framework, tested it, pilot tested it twice, done a public consultation, refined it, and it's been approved last year, and now we are in an implementation phase. Quickly, that data collection tool, since that is kind of the heart of it, you will see that it's, in a way, the topics are very familiar. So there are a lot of audit questions, so to speak, though it's not measuring against a standard, it's collecting data on major topics which are very familiar to all of you, being it forced labor, working hours, ages, health and safety. There's also management systems, and there are what we call advanced questions. The assessment process, and this is probably a bit more out of the traditional auditing, but it starts with self-assessment by the facility. So the principle of what SLCP is to drive accountability and ownership at the facility level. So the data collection is done by the facilities at the facility level, whether they take full responsibility or they work in partnership with a local server provider, what we call a joint assessment. Then the verification is done by an external party, qualified according to the criteria that we have set and monitored by an organization to do the selection of these verifiers. And they will check the completeness and the correctness of the data earlier provided by the facility. And if necessary, they will also correct that. And that so the verified data is then being shared in what we call a semi-decentralized model in order to make it available to as many as possible stakeholders that are part of our system. And this needs a bit of explanation. So you can see it here. We are working in partnership with the ITC, the International Trade Center, and body under the WTO and United Nations. So facilities, they start their process by creating an account in what we call the gateway. So that's hosted by the ITC. They start the self or the joint assessments by either the offline version, the Excel that I was just showing you, or they start the process online in an accredited host. In the light operation, we had 3 accredited hosts, being it Ascent, Fair Factory Clearinghouse, and the SAC. And we're really happy to announce that from this year onwards, Sedex will also be an accredited host. After this, the self-assessment or joint assessment is completed, the verifiers will add their data into it. Then the verified data are being shared in the repository in the ITC distribution gateway, and from there it can be reshared among the accredited hosts in the system. So that way it gives a lot of flexibility to manufacturers, to brands who could be a member or a client to different platforms, and they can pull the verified data and use it to the purposes that they want to use it for, whether it's remediation or scoring or for their internal systems. As mentioned, we have moved from development into putting the converged assessment framework into practice. We wanted to start because everything basically was kind of new with the converged assessment framework, but also that innovative way of sharing through a network of platforms. So we wanted to do that in a contained environment. So we've said we start rolling out in 2 countries only with a limited number of facilities. And that's what we did in November 2018, and we've just finalized the light operation. So that was, as you see it here on the slide, we worked with 200 facilities who, from Sri Lanka and China who have been trained to use the tools, to use the systems. And we managed to get 140 verified data in the system and shared with the different platforms and with the different brands. We had more than 100 approved verifiers in the system and having access also to the different platforms. We had Sumera as being our verification oversight organization, so the one selecting the approved verifiers, but also doing quality checks on the verified assessments. And as mentioned, we had ITC, FFC, Ascent, and SAC as the IT partners. And I'm happy now to hand over to Nikhil to explain a bit on the findings of the light operation.
But before I mention that, so I'm actually, as Janet mentioned, I sit on the council for the SLCP. We have a very sort of structured governance system. We have an independent chair, and we have a council representing, multiple stakeholders, and also we have working groups. So I was initially on the steering committee, and then I dropped off for a while, and I'm back on the council now that the tool is developed. So as Janet mentioned, we had our light operations in Sri Lanka and China, and I'm sort of happy to sort of now reveal some of the findings there. And I think that what we actually did identify was it worked. I mean, the proof of concept worked, and it was great to have all of us involved. I think as a manufacturer to be part of the program, to be involved in the development of the tool and to actually be able to implement it was just a very different scenario from what we've been used to in the past. So, what we've seen is that facilities and verifiers are using the converged assessment framework. The VOO is adding value, and we see that the system is functional. Of course, with any challenges, we sort of see sometimes that we have encountered challenges. We were at a council meeting last week in Amsterdam, and many of those have already been overcome, and we're sort of prioritizing to fix them for the 2019 operation. But what we see, a lot of them are sort of related to IT bugs and various other things, but we will make the improvement. I think we're all committed to making it work, and we'll see that. So if I talk about what the success factors are already, first of all, massive support from signatories, manufacturers, brands, and service providers. We've all worked together on this program for 2 years. We've sat in many, many meetings, spent a lot of our time. As Janet mentioned, there have been many attempts at this in the past, and many of them have failed. But I think the timing is right now, and we've made some progress, and we have a tool, and we've tested it. We've got adoption commitments from the brands, which is what we manufacturers want to see. We don't want to have a tool that's not going to be used. So we've got adoptions commitments from the brands. The ITC for the gateway, it's worked out really, really well. So we've got some really, really strong partnerships. And our hosts, and thank you to, I used to be on the board of Sedex as well when we started discussing it. So it's great to see it all happening now and making it happen. So we're really appreciative of that. So if this just really proves the point. We had a survey last month, and it just really gives us a lot more confidence in terms of what we're doing. It really makes us understand that we are doing the right thing, and you can see exactly what brands have said and what users have said. And I mentioned, we have bugs that we have to deal with, but everyone is in for the long run. They understand that. The way, I think we heard in the last session just now that, it's all about working together, and it's not about audits. It's about, being able to be part of the whole process. And so what we're trying to do here, it really fits into the future. And as I say, you can see from the users that the tool covers all the aspects that need to be addressed. So for me, if I talk to you about how many audits I've done, I can give you some statistics. We have And we must have probably spent about $150,000 last year on audits, and I think, and spent 353 man days. So I think to see a reduction and to see that going back into the supply chain to improving conditions is just what we need, especially in this very fast fashion environment that we live in at the moment. So if I go into the rollout, so what do we learn from the light operations? We learned that we need to be deep before we actually go broad. And, you know, I think, as I say, with the strong governance that we have now developed a phased approach. And you can see that we are launching, this year, the process in 4 countries. Sri Lanka and China are already there, but India and Taiwan are going to be added very, very, very soon. And then you can see the rollout in the next, in the following year, in this year, 2019. We have partnerships with the ILO and Better Work in Indonesia, and we have consultations in Vietnam, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Cambodia, which we hope to implement there in 2020. So, as I say, we're hoping to cover the main markets, and as I say, we've got the backing of the brands who will adopt this. So it's looking very positive. I think the two factors, two success factors of the SLCP are really scale and credibility. So we're cautious, but we realize that we need to. The need is now. So we do need to make sure we have the right tool. We also need to make sure we scale it up as soon as we can, but it has to be the right tool. So you can see here in terms of our 5-year strategy where we want to go in 5 years in terms of how many sort of assessments we will have. And you can also see what is very interesting is that the resources, I mean, the ultimate aim of this project, as Janet mentioned, is to improve the social and labour conditions in the industry. So you can see the savings that are going to be developed, that we've sort of worked out in the next 5 years, that hopefully we'll be able to put back into the sector to achieve better conditions. Sorry?
Yeah.
That's what I did, right? Okay.
Yeah, you need to
okay.
go forward. Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of benefits, you can see the benefits here outlined for all the stakeholders. As a manufacturer, we always talk about. I remember when I was on the board of Sedex, we always talked about value addition to manufacturers. And I think this is a win-win situation. At the end of the day, if we can reduce the number of audits, I talked about the amount of money that we're spending as an organisation. If we can reduce that, you're going to see significant benefits. As I say, reduction in audit fatigue. It's been one of the biggest challenges in our industry for many, many years. And very trivial as well, because the audits have been very sort of, they've been very sort of strange in terms of some things you do for others, and so there hasn't been any really much standardization. Increased ownership and accountability. We all need to work together. I think we've heard collaboration many, many times today, and that's what this program is. And ability to redirect resources to the needs of the industry. Brands, at the end of the day, reduce management burden, the amount of money. If we're spending that amount of money, I'm sure the brands are spending an amount of money as well. We have credible data that will be verified. And as I say, I think everyone, it'll have an impact on protecting the brand reputation. Service providers, I think there's an opportunity here for even being able to use this across all industries in time to come. And it's a best practice. I mean, at the end of the day, we're benchmarking best practice. At the end of the day, because maybe we have all been involved in creating this, we are actually generating best practice. And again, for non-profits, a consistent measure. I talked about the sort of different tools out there at the moment, or different sort of standards out there. So this is a single consistent measure, trusted data, greater transparency, and positive impact on the working conditions. So if I look at where we are in terms of the signatories, 191 signatories from different stakeholders. You can see the brands that are in there. Many brands that you probably thought never even talked to each other have been sitting in the same room, working together for the industry. And that's why I say the time is right now. The time is right for this to happen. It wouldn't have been maybe able to happen 10 years ago. I haven't been in the industry 20 years myself. I couldn't see this happening, but it's happening now, and I'm very proud to be part of it. So I'm now going to pass on.
Thank you. Oh, perfect. Sam, I suppose really over to yourself, as a long-standing member within Sedex, and obviously the discussions we've had around the assessment part. Be interested to hear from you really. Where you see the main benefits of using Sedex as a platform to kind of drive continuous improvement. And whilst SLCP is currently looking at the apparel and footwear sector, where potentially you see further kind of convergence in this moving forward. So, yeah, Sam, if you could take the floor.
Yeah, can you all hear okay? Sounds quite quiet from here. I'll speak loudly. Okay, so World Fruit, we work with 22 countries, 112 suppliers, over 200 pack sites, many farmers, and then smallholders. So obviously there's no surprise that I like Sedex because it is a one place, one-stop shop, and I want that Sedex data in one place. Responsible sourcing data for us is so important for our customers and obviously how we work in our supply chain. But Dan Murray touched on it earlier this morning about the scale of Sedex. I mean, 15 years in the making now, and the access to the membership, many of which aren't even in the room, many B members as well. There's a massive kind of test and deliver program here, and projects like the SLCP, Stronger Together, other projects out there really do create a massive opportunity, a gateway to more useful information. And I've got to be honest, from a company that's paying Sedex membership and potentially other memberships out there, or at least our 2-yearly SMETA audit, a company of our size, 150 million turnover, we've got to be careful of our costs. So if we start going outside of Sedex too often, there's going to be many questions asked. But if Sedex is working with the right partnerships and the right industries out there, it's an easy sell in my business. So obviously it's a massive plus for me by working with Sedex. So it's not just about data. So something really I'm keen for is to work on projects with Sedex. I've worked on many working groups with Sedex. But just to touch on what Dan was saying earlier this morning, that scale of Sedex is really important because you've got organisations like Stronger Together, tackling modern slavery, Elevate and Lee and Fung with the e-learning platform helping to train, and also organisations like And Wider, which gathers anonymous insights of workers' lives through calling worker mobile phones in their mother tongue. Obviously, this is all underpinned by trust both with employee and employer. But you see, the membership, it really opens collaboration. Nicole was talking very much about collaboration. Perhaps the passion of your collaboration is something that, if we all embody more, will create more and more progress in supply chain. So if I touch on e-learning and why I think that's so good, before I do that, I want to ask Rodney, before you started in Sedex, what was e-learning like? Because I've got my memories and I've been with Sedex for several years.
So I manage so I'm part of the training team within Sedex, and I manage the e-learning platform, which is in its current state now, and since the project was launched. So when I first started, initially, based on feedback on the original resource platform that we had, the feedback was in regards to what was there wasn't enough of the right resources available to help our members. In regards to videos and guidance, where we are now with e-learning, this is based on the feedback. We have, multiple videos, we have multiple step-by-step guidance, and this is to focus on different aspects within the different tools that we have and make the awareness of the tools. Again, the beginning state for when members actually join, I think from my perspective, when I'm training, and what I've noticed is that there's a lot of members that don't actually realise what's available. And my duty and my job and my role, I provide webinars that help make that awareness as well, because there is a lot of tools and resources available within the world of Sedex.
Certainly, I started working with Sedex back in 2006 when I worked with John Lewis and Waitrose, and I can really advocate that. In the last 2 years, it's really pushed on, and gone are the days where it's just PowerPoint presentations and PDFs to see how to do things more effectively in the system, but with your suppliers. Right now, if you're not using e-learning, really start to use it. The navigation is going to continue to improve, but more importantly, put a patience on that system, and you can find so much useful information. So for example, if you're new to responsible sourcing, or your business in this room, you might be an AB member, or even a retailer, whereby you're looking at new people working responsible sourcing, there's some really good information out there. So for a starter, if you're completely new to it, your responsible sourcing supply chain journey, that really sort of pulls out why it's important, what businesses are saying, and what media issues can obviously bring to light issues. but really, really important, management systems. It gets spoken about a lot, and if you're not a techie person or a technologist in the supply chain, often management systems can be a bit misplaced with your own understanding.
Yep.
So if you're pretty new to responsible sourcing, or like I said, you've got a team you're developing, look at the one that was worked on with Sedex and Elevate, which is social responsibility management systems, which is allowing you to learn all those key aspects of social responsibility in a management system. So policies, procedures, and all the actions that go with that. It's going to align you with good practice in your company, with your customers, making sure your T's and C's are in place so you can continue to supply. And I can tell you probably as well, Rodney, is probably one of the key areas that people misplace themselves with their learning and in responsible sourcing.
Yeah, so we basically have specific courses which members can actually complete. Within the courses itself, there's like the sustainability modules which have a video, some form of video module in there which you watch. And at the end of that, there's a quiz which you can then complete. Now, the key thing about this is that once you've actually completed, now, let's say, for example, you have multiple users within your organisation. What you're able to do is run reports on the specific members, or specific users, sorry, that actually completed the courses to showcase their understanding of the responsibles or the sustainability modules within this. So, for example, if it's to do with aspects on health and safety, fire management, the way that organisations are able to use the tool and use Sedex e-learn is that they can showcase that their staff have a full understanding within within those different key areas. So there's loads of different ways you can use it. You can run, you run these reports and you can see who has the understanding of those specific aspects as well.
So Rodney, just a point on that. I'm a supplier, I've got a pack site.
Yeah.
Got me, very enthusiastic, passionate about responsible sourcing. Got a colleague that works with me. But I've also got a pack site with managers that are dealing with health and safety,
Sure.
Or it could be any sort of policy.
Mm-hmm.
We've got 2 users on the account.
Yep.
Got louder there. And that's quite good. We know the system. What about if I've got some procurement people or people in the pack house that I want to learn about, let's say, modern slavery with procurement,
Yeah.
or in the pack house something good on health and safety? How easy is it for them to also be members under my company membership?
Yeah. So part
cost?
of so with the actual cost of the with the actual membership, the training itself or the guidance and the actual e-learning platform is part of the actual membership. So let's say, for example, you do have the multiple staff within your organisation. If you have a company admin, which is the key role in regards to adding different users, then you can add actual users individually so they all can self-learn, self-teach themselves and use the actual courses, completing the quizzes. And then in there, again, the actual manager, let's say it's the site manager, can run the reports based on that information to showcase who's actually understanding or who's learning, benefiting from the actual courses itself.
And who's done the training?
Yeah, and who's done the training as well, yeah.
And so, like myself as a supplier, an AB member, we have to do SMETA audits, but most of my supply chain that's dealing with branded product, a retailer product, needs to do a SMETA audit. I know we've talked about assessments here versus audits a little bit, but it's quite hard to prepare for an audit if you don't know what to do, especially when you've got changing people in pack sites. And there's some really good video tutorials and module assessments that you can check that, one, your staff are learning properly in the pack house to prepare for a SMETA audit, right from preparation to actually uploading all of those actions and corrective actions, and then the follow-up process so that you're compliant to your end customer. There's some really good videos on there, and all that training is tracked and monitored. So again, you can see that the staff are working through it properly. So you're going to be audited, steps and SMETA guidance for suppliers. If in your company you've got people that haven't got the preparation for a SMETA audit, they need to be looking at that. But also Sedex Advance. And there can be any grumbles with any system. It can be iPhones even though they're quite intuitive. But one of the things to say that is there's so much in Sedex, so much useful resources in Sedex, and so many parts of the system. But all of the learning there will show you how to use different parts of that Sedex Advance, for example. People in your company should be knowing how to run reports on their suppliers, that's a given. But completing the SAQ, not always straightforward for some people. And also creating sites and linking through to the end customer, all of those basic fundamentals. But also if you've got exposure where you can find the forced labour indicator report. I think it might have been Dan or someone else mentioned the forced labour indicator report in this morning's presentation. in that introduction piece. But it's really good because if you've got, like myself, 22 countries I'm working with, that forced labour indicator report gives you strong medium indicators or light indicators. I might have got the terminology slightly wrong there. But I can look at my supply chain and think, right, who's not got policies in place? Who's not necessarily doing the training? Because those forced labour indicator reports are looking at audits, report results, and they're also looking at self-assessment questionnaire answers. It's doing a lot of that job for you, so why would you not use it? So again, I'm advocating Sedex in a really positive way because I know over the last several years it's really shifted and moved along. But on that point with, Rodney, if you don't mind me asking, Sedex Advance is here now, it's going to continue to develop. What about the training gap versus the delivery of a new update? What does that look like in practice?
Yeah, sure. So I guess with any project that we have, if it's SLCP or any project that's coming into the organisation, the training team work closely with that actual project. So this would to ensure that we're in line with material, making sure that we prepare for the actual project itself, and make sure there's awareness within the members as well. Key aspects and awareness is the fact that we provide webinars. So I provide webinars as well, consistent webinars throughout. And this is the same for whether it's trying to, complete the assessment, whether you're trying to be visible within with your different buyers within the organisation. There's different webinars that focus on different aspects, and tying into what you've just said there, Sam, is the fact that we do have, when it comes to new projects, then there is a webinar or some form of guidance documents that fall in line with the whole thing. So it's kind of like a package.
Sam, sorry, can I just interject here? I think it's just around the report and the data elements. And one of the key benefits of the collaboration with SLCP is that convergence of data. And I suppose really to Nikhil and Sam really to this question is how important is having that data in your business, and how do you use that within your business and within your supply chain to prioritise?
Perhaps you'd like a quick break from me. We'll go back to Nikhil.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the data that we obviously, the internal data, we live on data. We need the data to be able to sort of strategize in terms of how we work with our customers, our own internal processes. So to have that unique data and the standard data, I think is very, very important, because at the moment it's very confusing as to which, what levels we need to be at. So I think for me, having that standard data that we know that is going to be applicable across the line to everyone and that we've also, and I mentioned the whole point about being part of the whole process, is important to develop that trust. So I think that is a key for us, because we live in a world of information overload at the moment. So to be able to have, with the amount of emails we all get, and so to be able to have at least one unique set of data is important for us.
Yeah, I mean, obviously echo. With regard to worldwide fruit, the data we get from Sedex means that we can work efficiently. If we didn't have a platform like Sedex, and we're managing things through, I said 112 suppliers, and you multiply that by pack sites and farms and beyond, I'd be looking at hundreds of spreadsheets and hundreds of emails going back and forth. So look, Sedex is really fantastic in that regard. And the data we use from it allows us to see who's performing well on closing out non-compliances from ethical audits, but also on the sort of more softer side, how they are answering questions to SAQs, but also all the things that Sedex will continue to develop going forward. The forced labour indicator report, like one I said earlier, is a really strong one. But I've got customers in this room, no doubt, I can see a couple. Without using Sedex, how am I to effectively represent that the product they have in the supply chain is meeting the T's and C's that our procurement people and account managers sign up to in the business? Without Sedex, we wouldn't be able to do it. So probably 3 reports I'm going to very quickly mention. We have 7 we download each week for our own company, and we pull that into an internal database. That's so we can track a number of things, even changes in self-assessment questionnaires. But probably 3 I want to pull out right now for everyone in the room would be the supplier tracker report, which hopefully most of you are familiar with. If you're new to responsible sourcing, you need to get someone working on pulling that top-line data, supplier tracker report. Audit report with descriptions, because you can actually see the audit issues that are coming out, and very often if you've got audits that are happening in Spain, for example, those descriptions are often in English and Spanish side by side, so no problems there with translations when you're working on issues going back in the supply chain. And I've said about 10 times now the forced labour indicator report. But these trends of data allow us to move forward, progressively show our customers, but our own business, that things are moving forward, and not just compliance, because it's things like the SLCP where we can start to look at assessment and more granular data for continuous improvement, because there'll be a number of things different with the SLCP, but something where Sedex can embody that data going forward.
Great, thank you. I'm just conscious of time, so I'd like to really open up for questions from the floor. There's a couple which are coming through, but really, after what you've listened to this morning, if we could open up for any questions for myself or the panel that you'd like to go further into, or are you all just hungry for lunch? I've got you for another 5 minutes, yeah? Yes. She's coming with the microphone.
Oh, hello. Hi, I'm Heidi from Sea Salt. I was wondering, can you monitor the progress of the courses on e-learning from your suppliers? Have they done the courses, or only within your own company?
Yeah, so you can do both. So with the sustainability modules, it's a great question actually, because you do have 2 generic reports, so your own company and also your suppliers as well. So yeah, again, I think the important aspects is, you've asked that question, and there's different aspects really, because you have the webinars where that could be a question you ask in the webinar. I can showcase that and make that awareness. There's many tools that are available, and sometimes you don't realise it's actually just there. So the answer is yes. Yeah.
Very strong.
Oh.
Thank you. Rodney, this one's probably more for you. Do you have any e-learning modules or other kind of learning for kind of leadership functions regarding their accountability and the leadership aspects? Because a lot of the e-learning modules that we have a look at are kind of quite task-based for buyers.
Yeah. There's not, this is something we can look at. This is a great thing of where we are now. Just to give you a background it's not even a year in regards to the actual platform being launched, but we are working towards adding more modules, and that's the freedom of it. So it could be something in regards to feedback. If that's a huge requirement, then by all means. But at the moment, there's not a specific module focused around that aspect.
Because it all kind of starts from the top, isn't it? That kind of organisational culture, buy-in,
I totally agree
to wanting to source responsibly.
Yeah.
So I think that'd be really good.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we can certainly take that feedback in, and we love a working group, and we love our members to be part of that working group, and so you can really kind of drive that change. So I think it's a year old, and it's really now the opportunity to kind of expand the e-learning portal. We've also had a number of other customers. They've actually also allowed us to host their e-learning modules in the portal as well, to really try to have a greater expanse across the board. I'll come to you in a second, Leah, because this lady here first.
Hi, it's Dion from Sainsbury's. This is probably more of a question for Janet. And it's great to see the progress of the programme and the tool. And I'm just wondering if you could just give a little bit more detail on the verification piece, because I think that's where data always falls down, and it is where we're kind of in the audit crisis that we're in. So I think, are you able to kind of summarise what's the USP about how you do your verification that will mean that this can be trusted and credible moving forward? Because I'd be really intrigued to see how you've done it differently.
I'll try to. Thanks for the question. As you say, I think Nikhil mentioned it, 2 things that are really crucial for SLCP: scale and credibility. Verification is really at the heart of that credibility. We have, first of all, for the application of, I think the selection of who can do the verification. Verification, by the way, is first of all desktop review, but always followed by on-site inspection. And then the verifier will walk through the sites, will study the records, do some worker interviews, but always with the vision to either confirm or correct the original response given in the self or joint assessment. So the quality of that data comes with the quality of the verifier. And for that we have an application process for the verifying bodies and for the individual verifiers. The criteria are aligned with APSCA. So we're trying to be complementary to what already exists. Then the verifiers will go through a short training to understand the SLCP process, not to understand what is auditing, because they have been qualified already based on their experience and their knowledge. But they need to understand how the SLCP process is, what systems they can use. And then they'll also have to prove that in a proxy, an online exam. So that's part one, and then also there's also the quality of the data itself, and that's another role of what we have the verifier oversight organization to monitor. They will do three ways of checks of the quality. One is they will check the quality of the policy of the verifying bodies. And they will do desktop reviews of the verified assessments and try to find the inconsistencies. And then they also do counter and shadow verifications, all on a sample basis. And we've learned a lot also from the light operations, what is most effective, because you can do endless counter verification, but it's also very costly. But we think we are in the right path to find the right balance between the two.
Thank you. And Leah?
This is a question again. Actually, thank you, Dion, for your question, because it was a good segue to mine. Lee Esterhazen from Andwider. This is a question for Nikhil and Janet. I recognize the achievement it takes to get the level of agreement you have across so many stakeholders. I also recognize that starting with self-assessment and an audit-based verification makes sense. But as we all know, the most vulnerable workers are often excluded from an inspection type verification. So I wondered whether there was any plan in the future to include anonymous data reported directly from workers via mobile, and whether you could give us some idea of the discussions around that within SLCP.
Yeah, I'll take it. So there, I fully agree with your statement that you would like to have also the input from the workers, and preferably in a space where they are safe and free to speak. We have currently in our verification protocol, we are focusing on worker interviews a bit more in the traditional way, but we are having discussions also, for instance, with the ILO, who sits on our council also. And also with some organizations who do more on the mobile checking, to see if there would be future potential. But I also need to be clear on that. So far, it's not anchored yet in our protocol. So it's not to say that it's going to be excluded. I think we need to be open to innovative ways. But we've focused our attention so far to get this off the ground and running. Right now. Yeah. But you'll see also in our signatory list, you'll see on the civil society groups, and also there are some organizations who are more into these newer ways of worker engagement, and they are active and they're voicing their opinions strongly to us as well.
Yeah, and I just want to add that the whole environment that we've created by everyone working together, we can have these discussions. I reiterate the whole trust element, because we're all different stakeholders working together. So a lot of these maybe concerns were, in the past, but the fact that we're all working together, we understand what everyone wants to do. allows us to facilitate that in the future. So I think that we've created that element of trust.
And I suppose from Sedex side, to add to that, I think this is, again, another great opportunity with the collaboration with SLCP, is that we're currently undertaking some work around that direct worker reporting and worker voice, and how we can use data direct from workers to support our members in their decision making. So having Sedex as that central repository of that information, and then enables us to really start to pull in other critical data points with other providers. And I think, as Aidan quite clearly mentioned in the earlier session, there is so much to do, and we can only do it through collaboration. And I think, you know, the key message from Sedex and our members and our partners is, how do we work together to bring those critical elements to our members. I've been told I've got you for another 5 minutes, so I can keep the floor open, or oh yes, sorry.
Hi, my name is Anil Kariwala from India. I have a suggestion regarding data verification. This is a discussion going on for years together to verify data from the workers, who mostly would themselves be subdued by the factory owners that, hey, don't tell this and do tell this. Probably one of the easiest ways to verify data is not just from the data source itself, but from the financial records of a company. For example, if the shirt Nikhil is wearing takes 20 minutes to produce, and if the factory is producing 10,000 of those shirts, so the time required is 200,000 minutes. But if the factory has only 20 workers, there is no way it can be produced. So there must be 50 ghost workers hidden somewhere away. When the audit is there, they are hidden away. So I think one of the easiest way would be to correlate the financial information of a manufacturer, of a factory, together with the data which is in public domain, which is on display. Thank you.
Thank you. So, and thanks for that suggestion. These are so we have different working groups. They are now called technical committees, and we have to each of such level of details. We have we have discussions with the different perspectives. So I would really invite you also to maybe be part of the SLCP signatory and join us in these discussions. Yeah.
I was 6 years a board member of Sedex.
With me, many years ago.
So time for a new environment. You're welcome. Yeah.
Thank you. I think there was this gentleman here on the left who's Elif in the second row from the front. We've just got a question. Elif, this one.
Hi, I'm Alok from Sock Shop. I'm going to ask a very simple question. Unfortunately, I'm blind, so I was listening to the presentation, and I'm sure there's lots of visuals there. But it's just, I'm kind of baffled and overrun with all the acronyms and so on. So just asking in a very straightforward way. As an example, we've got a factory out in Jakarta. We've been importing from them for the last 10, 15 years. We know the owner very well. We audit them regularly. We're very protective of our reputation, and we're on the Sedex platform. So how would it actually help me to use SLCP program in the context of all that? Because obviously when you see the data all on the board and everything, it kind of makes sense, but just on a very practical, simple basis. Could you answer that quite shortly? I know everyone's hungry.
So how it helps is if we, the SLCP, the first purpose of it was to address the issue of audit duplication. So if we have one standardized method to collect the data and ensure that that's verified, credible, trusted data, there's no need to repeat different audits. Your suppliers will have more resources available to do capacity building remediation programs, because they don't need to, as Nikhil was saying, don't need to rely so much on, or they don't need to every week do another audit. For you as, on the other end, as a buyer, your suppliers, if they would all adopt the SLCP methodology, you would have consistent data that you can get from your Sedex platform, and you can compare your suppliers with each other, and you can do easier benchmarking.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the very simple
one. I mean, it's efficient. We all go through about audit. You know, we talked about audit fatigue. So here, your supplier will find it easier to work with multiple customers using the same sort of assessment, and the same for you as well. So as Janet mentioned.
I can come to you. You are taking lunch, but no. On your head, no, please, sir.
Oh, sorry. I'm Olman Vargas I'm from Costa Rica. We're small banana producers. My question is there any way to use your system to add value to our product, like as a differentiation, because there's a lot of information from our process that it is being put into the system, and let's say if there's any positive reviews from our workers or from any part of the supply chain that can be used as a way to better our way to make business.
If I understand correctly, so apologies. We do have the member directory within Sedex that allows organisations to showcase and promote their practices internally, and that directory is open then for all different members to search. So within that, as your organisation, you could showcase best practice or projects that you've been working on that could then be open to potential customers who are out there, if I answered your question. Sam?
Just on that point, I'm really pleased you've asked that. As a supplier ourselves, and we have obviously many suppliers in the supply chain, that's exactly what we want them to be able to do. So obviously the member director is one step, but also if I'm going out to a supplier, rather than them having to send a presentation to me each time, if they can keep Sedex up to date with their best practice, the presentation they want to share with the customer visit or my visit, whatever it might be, it is going to one system with that access to one bit of information. So I'm really pleased you asked the question, because I'm sure it's in Sedex's kind of pipeline with all the other things going on, but I would advocate that as well. And if other people in the room feel that as well, I think showcasing what we have on the system in one place is going to be really beneficial going forward, I think.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you all for the opportunity to discuss the tools we're using to achieve progress. And I'm sorry I've kept you a little bit late, and I hope you enjoy your lunch and the rest of the conference.